Hey, this is Pops, and I've been rewatching Star Trek, the original series this week, Conscious of the King. That's right. Shakespeare in the Park with the Enterprise. Not what I expected. Let me give you my thoughts. Hey, this is Pops, and I've been going through Star Trek, the original series. I'm not really a Trekkie. I'm more of a Star Wars nerd, but going back and revisiting these episodes that I grew up with my mom has been really kind of a cool experience. And hat tips to all of you that have been so supportive, cool comments, and lots of feedback. I appreciate it. This week was the conscience of the king, which is ripped right out of a line from Hamlet, and this is a lot of Shakespeare. And I was kind of like, I don't know. It starts off with some Shakespeare, and then we get more Shakespeare, and then we get more Shakespeare, and I'm kind of like, I feel like I was kind of like channeling my inner Beavis and Butthead, where I was kind of like, what, uh, happening? So the story goes basically that Kirk is there with the former friend of his, well, longtime friend of his, I guess, and they had witnessed this horrible massacre way back in the past by someone named Kodos, and they think that this performer that's doing this Shakespearean play, the leader of this group, is also that horrible mass murderer, and they want to try to bring him to justice, I guess, get some sort of vengeance. But Kirk, of course, is like, nah, that's not really him. And then through a sequence of events over the course of the episode, we discover if it's him or not and what actually has been going on. So the episode was kind of slow for me. Like I was off to a pretty slow start with all of this. Didn't really dislike it. I actually was more expecting more of a two-face kind of reveal here because they in the opening shot and then here they kind of hold back on the second side of his face, and I was kind of let down. I'm like, oh, I was hoping for like a two-face, gross-looking scar or something, but all right, whatever. Lots of Shatner shots, lots of R&D, putting two and two together, and then Spock also trying to do detective work to figure out what's been going on. This is the hot girl of the week. She's basically the daughter of the not quite sure if it's Kodos guy, and he basically Kirk basically falls for her really, really quickly, as you can tell from the chemistry and the scenes. They go for a little stroll. That's when they find that the guy that got him there, he was murdered, and that's his funeral. And then there's sort of like this back and forth. They bring her on board, and then so they goes back and forth. And Spock is very skeptical, which was interesting because this episode really pits Kirk versus Spock multiple times in multiple ways. Spock even has a comment later in the episode about it being logical, and Kirk is like, oh, "I can't just follow logic. I have to follow my feelings." I'm thinking to myself, that makes no sense whatsoever, none whatsoever. So it does involve Bones as well, which is actually what I think it's what keeps it so grounded and makes it really work in the episode. But yeah, lots of Shatner shots, and then just lots of this sort of like trying to figure things out. This was a very strange scene. I'm like, Bones is Spock is basically like I've been doing all this research, and according to my research, it's a good chance this dude is Kodos. I don't know, some sketchy going on with Kirk, some sketchy going on with the other guy. Let's dig a little deeper. Bones is like, I'm just drinking, man. I don't know about your crazy conspiracy theories, man. I'm just gonna have another drink. Why don't you take a drink with me? Oh yeah, that's right. It doesn't really work on you people. It was it was maybe the best scene of the whole episode, to be honest. This is them getting a little hot and heavy, like looking at the stars, Kirk in the light, get a little kiss while, and then they cut away to Spock doing his research, talking with Bones again, and then this is the guy in quarantine. This guy is the other witness that would know Kodos, and what they do is they kind of set this up as you're not quite sure if Kirk is trying to protect him or if Kirk is trying to use him as bait. One of the two. But he moves him from his other position to engineering, so he's kind of isolated. He's not really out there to be at risk if Kodos tries to murder him. And there's just like, oh, can you play a song for me? I'm so lonely down here. Cut away with Uhura singing, and in the process of the singing, this mysterious hand, a la like a clue or murder by death cliche, like poisons his milk, and then he passes out. And they're like, ah, it was so dramatic. And then he's in sick bay. And there's all this R&D. They're trying to figure out if he's been poisoned or not. Spock, of course, is getting increasingly more confrontational to Kirk, and Bones is there playing kind of mediator and all of this. then there's the big confrontation with this guy. So Kirk goes to him and says, "Listen, I think you're Kodos." And this guy, this is so strange. I don't quite understand what I'm supposed to take away from this. So they have this computer in the background that can analyze his voice. He reads these lines. At some point, he just looks away and just says the lines without looking at them. But we're supposed to presume he's not Kodos. He's clearly Kodos. Kirk at least does call him out on it. He tries to play it up as though he's a good actor, and that's why he was able to pull it off. It was just absurd. At this point, if you're an audience member and you don't think this is Kodos, I think you've been hit on the head. It's clearly Kodos. You're trying to figure out what is Kirk's threshold for acting on that information as the confrontation kind of heightens, where they're going to have a performance on the Enterprise. And in doing so, this is the engineering guy. He overhears that he's Kodos. He's going to do a hit on him. And in the process, he gets interrupted by Kirk. Kirk's like, no, man, I got this. You go. I got this. And then there's a confrontation with the daughter and him. And she basically just out of the blue confesses everything, that she's the one that's been killing all the witnesses. 7 out of the 9 are gone. No one will ever know you're Kodos, never know you're this mass murderer. It's okay, Dad. I got your back. It's all good. He's like, what have you done, daughter? This is terrible. I never wanted this blood on your hands. You murdered like 8,000 people, but suddenly your daughter was off limits. Kirk hears everything, of course, and confronts. And then there's like a little struggle, a little skirmish, and the phaser hits the dad, not Kirk, and she's just mentally ill. And that's kind of how the episode ends. Is she's just Bones comes in and explains she's completely off her rocker. She still thinks the dad's alive performing. It's a complete mess and a debacle. And I came away with like, what did I just sit through? This was probably the weirdest of the episodes where I'm not quite sure. I feel like there's just like a hodgepodge of other ideas that didn't quite work. Were all thrown together into like a bouillabaisse stew. There was like the Enterprise was somehow through a wormhole, and they were going to be stuck in some sort of Shakespearean time or Shakespearean planet. And then there's the other one with this mass murder guy that Kirk knew, and they're going to try to unravel this mystery. And then there's this other episode with the guy, the kid, and he's going to do and it's like all this stuff was all just this bouillabaisse stuff, and it didn't work out. And they just threw all these pages together, and then some guy rewrote it and made it this episode, Conscious of the King. Okay, wow. Um, by far my least favorite episode that I can think of right now. My first impression was the impression like, what on earth am I watching? And it didn't really ever get away with that. There were some moments I think that are well shot. Obviously, again, all of the technical stuff of the show work in the sense of it's taking serious what it's doing, but I get how it could be mocked whenever they have the cutaways to things like this. So it's like he's just sitting in a chair listening to her sing to him. What is happening? Like I don't know what's happening. And then and Kirk is just so quick to like be confrontational with Spock. Like Spock's the one that's out of line. I just couldn't believe it. It was I don't know. This episode is, like I said, just throwing a bunch of things together, and the end result was this one. And I can't give it the kind of high praise that I have others. And I know that it's not totally my foray. I love more like, you know, command center type conflicts and ships on ship battles and things like that in the Trek universe. So this one's really not quite my speed. But anyway, that's my take on it. You guys will correct me. Maybe this is one of the best ones of all time and I've missed something. Maybe there's something really cool about this episode that I didn't get. I look to you people. From a normie point of view, was very like, ugh, not my thing. But that's my take. See you next time. I'm Pops.